My name is Ethan Marlowe. I am 28 years old, and I work as a freelance graphic designer in Chicago. Since I work from home, I spent most of my time with my partner. We had been together for 2 years. Her name is Natalie Green. Beautiful, intelligent, and hardworking. Or at least that's what I thought. She worked at a restaurant downtown. During busy hours, she'd be on shift, but when she came home, she was always smiling. There seemed to be no problems between us, until certain things started catching my attention. Her phone was always on silent. She constantly flipped the screen face down. One night, while she was in the bathroom, her phone was left unlocked on the table, and I saw a message. "I miss you. I can't wait to see you tomorrow morning." The sender? Tom, her manager at work. Something inside me broke. My heart raced, but I didn't want to judge too quickly. Maybe there was some misunderstanding. But then, I started reading the messages. It didn't take long for the truth to come out. Natalie had been flirting with her manager at the restaurant for weeks. Explicit texts during work hours, exchanged photos, even plans to meet up outside of work. Everything was written right there. That night, I didn't say anything to Natalie. I acted as if nothing had changed for a few days. But inside, I was unraveling. Eventually, I sat her down and told her everything I had discovered. Her eyes widened. At first, she tried to deny it, but when I showed her the screenshots of the messages, she fell silent. "I won't talk to him again. I'll block him," she said. She cried. I wanted to believe her. Foolishly. I did. But doubt still lingered. So a few days later, I checked her phone again. This time, she was more careful. But an unsaved conversation on iMessage revealed everything once more. Tom had texted her. "How are things with your boyfriend? I thought about you a lot last night." And Natalie had responded, "I told you not to text. Getting caught was so funny though. I'll come back to you once this is over. Once this is over, I'll come back to you." She had written it and added a laughing emoji. They were literally making a joke out of me. That sentence echoed in my mind. She had turned my pain into amusement. In her eyes, I was just an intermission, a short break. At that moment, I understood. My feelings meant nothing to her. It wasn't just betrayal, I was humiliated. I had become a joke. To her, our relationship was a playground, and I was merely a background character. That night, I sat in a dark room with my phone in my hand. I don't know what others would have done, but I didn't stay silent. I decided to strip away the mask of this game. I didn't yet know what I was going to do, but the seed of revenge had already been planted inside me. Before we move forward, if you enjoyed this story, don't forget to subscribe and hit the like button. The real reckoning begins now. That night, I lay on my back in bed, frozen, staring at my phone screen. A volcano of anger was building inside me. The relationship I had built on loyalty meant less to her than the lustful messages she shared with someone else. And now, she found this betrayal amusing, mocking me. It wasn't just me she had belittled. She had diminished everything we had, all the time we invested. She had turned me into a joke, laughing about me with another man. In that moment, I made my decision. This relationship would not end quietly. I would not walk away in silence. My first step was to back up all the evidence I had. I took screenshots, recorded short videos, and made notes, not just for my own pride, but to ensure justice was served. A voice inside me repeated over and over, "If staying silent has made you sick, maybe speaking up will heal you." The next morning, I logged into her social media accounts. I still had her passwords, I uploaded screenshots of all the conversations to her Instagram and Snapchat stories. No one would be able to ignore what she had done anymore. In the scene she had chosen, shame would now be the leading role. Next came personal messages. First, I sent the conversations directly to the man she had been messaging, her married manager. Then I forwarded the same messages to the restaurant's general manager and one of the owners. And for the final, hardest blow, I sent everything to her mother, the messages she had exchanged with him during the entire week I helped her move. Hours passed. The phone remained silent, but I did not. The first response came from the man himself. He wrote just 3 words. "What have you done?" The rest chose silence, maybe out of shock, maybe denial. Maybe they were reconsidering their own roles. But silence is not the sound of innocence, it's the sound of guilt. My ex called me hours later. Her voice trembled. "I'm sorry for everything." But this time, the woman on the other end of the line was not sad. She was afraid. Too late. I calmly told her everything. Who I had sent the messages to, what I had exposed. "You didn't just lose my trust. You made me lose my pride," I said. Then I hung up. 2 days later, the news spread. The stories I posted had circulated among the restaurant's employees. Many had already saved the screenshots to their phones. Some customers had left comments and even contacted management. But still, the restaurant remained silent. No apology, no action. But silence is often the first sign of victory in certain battles. For me, however, this was only the beginning. My ex struggled to erase the evidence, scrambling to explain herself to her friends. But the internet doesn't forget. Every excuse she made smelled like another lie. People no longer trusted her. Their gazes had shifted irreversibly. Then, a new thought crossed my mind. This man hadn't just destroyed my relationship. He had done this before, to others. Maybe I wasn't alone. And if I wasn't truly alone, other hearts had been shattered the same way. And suddenly, my revenge wasn't just personal anymore. That night, I opened my laptop. I started digging into his past. Facebook, Instagram, old comments, friends lists. And finally, I found a clue. His former partner, a comment from another woman. And in this story, she was no longer alone either. I didn't just see betrayal. I saw people building their lives on lies, and I decided to drown them in their own deception. The first wave of revenge had passed. The messages spreading on social media, the evidence sent to the workplace, the details exposed to her mother. Each was a tremor. But I wasn't going to stop, because at the center of everything were the two who smiled in my face while stabbing me in the back. My ex, Natalie, and her manager, Tom. Reading those messages, I realized that Natalie hadn't simply made a mistake. She had done this deliberately, knowingly, and gleefully. And that enraged me the most. But Tom wasn't innocent either. In fact, his role in the story was about to take an even darker turn. I dug deeper into Tom's past, and I discovered that he hadn't just been involved with Natalie. He had also had a similar relationship with another woman who worked at the same restaurant. Her name was Jenna Whitmore. I reached out to her on social media. At first, she stayed silent, but then the screenshots I sent changed everything. She wrote back with a single sentence. "So that's why he pulled away from me." Jenna had been with Tom about 2 years earlier. Back then, he hadn't even met Natalie yet. But after their relationship ended, Jenna suspected that Tom was getting close to another employee. She just didn't have proof. My messages, Natalie's conversations with him, opened her eyes. And then she dropped the bombshell. Tom had also had a past with the restaurant's former accountant. This was no longer an individual betrayal. It was a pattern, a system. Tom was using his position to draw women in, then discarding them quietly. Natalie was just the latest in a long line. Jenna and I decided to act. We reached out to other employees in the restaurant, carefully, without provoking anyone. Some had already harbored quiet resentment toward Natalie for years. She was openly favored by management, always given the best shifts, never punished for mistakes, customer complaints ignored. Now the reason behind her privileges was becoming clear. As more inside information surfaced, the pressure on Natalie grew. Silent whispers spread through the workplace. No one confronted her directly, but their eyes said everything. Her face had paled, carrying a shame even makeup couldn't hide. Tom, on the other hand, tried to stand tall, but his demeanor had changed. The loud, confident man now moved through the halls in silence. Because everyone knew he had been exposed too. The restaurant had become a battleground, one where no words were spoken, yet the war was unmistakable. And from the outside, I watched everything unfold. No one knew I was gathering intel from former employees, and the final step of my plan still waited, because the hardest blow had yet to be delivered. What would you do in my place? Let me know in the comments. I had almost reached the end of the story now. Natalie was the target of all eyes at the restaurant where she worked. Though Tom seemed to be holding on to his position, the walls had begun to crack. According to the information I gathered from inside, a silent divide had formed among the restaurant staff. Everyone knew everything, but no one could speak openly. As I calmly observed what was happening from the outside, the time had come to play my final card. The restaurant where Natalie worked was a well-known spot in Chicago, seemingly a family-run business, but inside, entirely different dynamics were at play. Tom was the manager there, but he too had someone above him, the owner, Richard Caldwell. Until now, this man had been unaware of the events because Tom kept everything under control, sweeping complaints under the rug. I decided to reach Richard directly, but not with an ordinary message. I compiled all the messages exchanged between Natalie and Tom, along with matching timestamps and location data, photos, and screenshots into a single file. This wasn't just about infidelity. It was documented proof of workplace misconduct, unethical behavior involving sexually explicit conversations. Worse, these messages were sent during shifts while customers were being served. I sent the documents along with a brief explanation to Richard's official email and, simultaneously, to the restaurant's customer service. My goal wasn't to get Natalie or Tom fired outright. It was to trap them in a position where they'd have no choice but to drown in the very system they'd built. Richard didn't respond for a few days. But according to my inside source, meetings had begun. No one could look Tom in the face anymore. Natalie, on the other hand, now came to work in tears, becoming a ghost among the staff, her presence barely noticeable. Whenever someone looked at her, she averted her eyes. The confident, smiling woman was gone. Then came the news. Natalie had quit voluntarily. I knew the only reason she hadn't left sooner was that she needed the money, but struggled to find another job. Now she was broke and unemployed. This time I didn't post anything on social media. I celebrated my victory in silence. Tom was still in his position, but everyone knew his reign was over, because no one trusted him anymore. Not the customers, not the staff. Natalie called me one last time, not to threaten me, not to apologize, just to explain, but I didn't answer. The right to reply no longer belonged to her. When it was over, I felt a mix of emotions: lightness, anger, peace, but most of all, control. I was no longer a pawn in her little games. I was the narrator of this story. I had set the rules, directed the stage. The next day, I knocked on a therapist's door because this war had exhausted me. I had won, but I wanted to carry this victory with inner peace. Honestly, going through something like this with someone you once loved so deeply is draining and devastating. Looking back now, I still feel sorrow because I miss the woman I planned to marry, but only the woman I first met. I don't regret a thing because they played with my life, and in my own game, I checkmated them. That was my story. If you liked it, don't forget to like the video and subscribe.